All right, Dan, what fun to have you on. And you're a Midwest guy, which I really love. I'm a Midwest gal, so I think we both love that clean, fresh air, don't we, up in the Midwest area?
Clean body, clean mind, catch a fish every time. That's the motto up here. We are humble and apologetic people with bad hair and sensible shoes, but we get a lot done, and you can trust us.
That is so, amen to that. That is the Midwest. I love it. I love it. So, Dan, I want to start here. You have spent decades traveling the world, uncovering the secrets of people who live the longest and, obviously, critically important, are the happiest. What first inspired you to do this work, to dig deep, so deep on this?
Well, I've been a lifelong explorer and a science journalist, and I stumbled upon an article in 1999 from the World Health Organization that showed that a small cluster of islands in Southeast Asia were producing the longest lived disability-free people in the world. In other words, these people live the longest lives in full health. And I said, now that's a good mystery and one worthy of solving. And, you open by saying I've traveled. Yes, I have traveled all these places, but only after I confirmed it with the data. So the first 3 years of Blue Zones was parsing through with a team of demographers worldwide census data to identify these areas where people are living statistically longest. And when I say that, I mean these are places with 8 to 10 times more people making it to 100. At middle age, they're living an extra 10 years in full health, which is to say without chronic disease. And only then, when I found these in the data, I traveled to these places with another team to verify ages. Again, it took 3 years. But the result is that these 5 blue zones where people are manifestly living the longest disease-free lives in the world. And then part 2 was to reverse engineer them, to see exactly what they've been doing, how they've been connecting, socializing, elements of their built environment, their diet, this new Blue Zones kitchen one pot. It sounds like a facile title, but it underlies or it's underpinned by about 155 dietary studies that show us exactly what 100-year-olds ate to live to be 100 over time, and that's the important point.
Mm-hmm. No, the Blue Zone, it's all so good, and I gotta a one pot, small amount of ingredients, right? It doesn't take long. I've been thumbing through it. I'm trying to figure out which one I'm gonna dig into first, strap my apron on, and get going, Dan. This is good.
I know, if you have a dozen other longevity experts on, they're going to talk to you about rapamycin or metformin or some superfood, or they got some supplement to sell you. I don't have any of that. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the 5 ingredients that drive longevity around the world are whole grains, greens, garden vegetables, tubers like sweet potato, nuts, and beans. These are not high profit margin foods, so they're not marketed to you. But I can tell you that if you're eating a diet composed mostly of those foods, it's worth about 12 extra years of life expectancy for a 20-year-old male. I'm going to repeat that. It's worth 12 extra years. And until we learn how to make those simple peasant ingredients taste delicious, people aren't going to pay attention. It's got to be fast and delicious, which is why I wrote Blue Zones Kitchen One Pot Meals. I worked with Stanford to find the 7 flavor profiles that Americans love. And then I metabolized in that this 20 years of research on what are the ingredients to longevity. And the result is this very easy to use cookbook.
Yeah, which is amazing, by the way. And thank you, Dan, right? Because you're right. These are foods we can grow outside in a garden. We can go and buy. I'm with you, right? Food alone is what we can use to heal ourselves and to nourish ourselves. And you're right. So many folks are selling things. So thank you for that. Yeah. And I know you've got 20, did you say earlier, items in the frozen food section of grocery stores and Costco's of the world. These are frozen foods that we can pick up and eat and nourish our bodies, our cells.
It's Blue Zone Kitchen frozen meals. They're about $6. They're made from, they're 100% whole food, plant-based. And people say, oh, I don't want to eat that. Sounds like rabbit food. But these are the top 3 best-selling frozen foods in the plant-based section of your frozen food, in your freezer section.
Yeah.
But, we spent 2 years to make sure they're as delicious as the meaty, cheesy, eggy competitors. And, you can turn your brain off, turn your taste buds up, and eat to 100.
That's awesome. I love it.
I just want to make one quick other point about,
please.
You said we can grow these foods in the garden. I think what's most important is, especially for poorer people who need it worse, you can buy these ingredients in a bodega. In most convenience stores, you can find these ingredients: a can of tomatoes, a bag of beans, some whole grain. When you mix a grain and a bean, you get a whole protein. These sort of carnivore bodybuilders, they don't realize that you can get all the protein you need from plant-based sources at a fraction of the price, with a fraction of the pesticides and the hormones and the saturated fat and the things that foreshorten our lives. And again, there's just not a lot of money in it. That's why you don't hear about it. But the research shows pretty convincingly.
Well, and I mean, Dan, I want to dig into that, but I want to understand what defines, for our audience and for those that are listening, a blue zone, right? Like, when you think about, how did you identify the common denominators, if you will, in these 5 all over the globe locations that are blue zones?
That was a 2-part question. I'll answer part 1 first. Part 1 is, if you want to, the criteria for a blue zone is you want to see the number of newborns who reach at least age 90. We consider a long living beginning at age 90, and it goes up to 120 actually. But we're looking at the threshold of 90. So the way you do it is you have to go back 150 years and look at birth and death records, identify everybody who made it to 90 and over. And then you compare the concentration of 90-year-olds to international benchmarks. And in all the blue zones, for those people who understand statistics, these places are 3 standard deviations from the norm. So they're in the top 1 percentile of the places that produce healthy 90-year-olds over time. You don't want to just look for today, because you get what's called a selection bias. If you look at Naples, Florida, for example, you're going to see a lot of people over 90. That's because rich white people go there to retire. So blue zones are places where this happened organically since about 1850. And then once you've identified these populations are living the longest, you have to realize that only about 20% of how long you live is dictated by genes. The other 80% is something else. These places are melting pots, so they don't have any special genes. They have the same genes collectively as everybody listening right now. So then we go through the history, the anthropology, the epidemiology, the medical research in search of common denominators. And there's essentially 4 of them, with an overarching principle that I really hope people write down when I'm done with this. And I know the people are listening right now are people who want to make it into the upper echelons of what they do. And I would argue longevity is a club you want to belong to, because the longer you live, the healthier you've been. So you want to get to the top 1% of this club, and I'll tell you exactly how they do it. In blue zones, about 90% of their diet over time is whole plant-based food. They do eat meat. We in America eat about 240 pounds of meat a year. That's a bathtub of dead animal. In blue zones, they're eating about 20 pounds a year, about once a week. So meat may have a place, but not very much of it. You don't need meat, but cornerstone of every longevity diet in the world is beans. If you're eating a cup of beans a day, it's worth about 4 extra years of life expectancy. They know their sense of purpose, and that just transcends their job. It includes their family, It includes giving back, and it includes a sense of responsibility. It's metabolized in words like ikigai or kuleana. These are Blue Zone's terms, which kind of mix life meaning and responsibility into one. And knowing clearly what that is adds about 8 years of life expectancy. They surround themselves with healthy people. We know that now, that if your 3 best friends are obese and unhealthy, there's a 150% better chance that you'll be overweight yourself. So curating your immediate social circle, picking 3 to 5 friends who you really let in, let into your lives. And those people, their idea of recreation should be physical activity, biking or golfing or playing racquetball. Friends who care about you on a bad day, friends who keep your mind engaged, and friends who I would argue you should have at least one friend who's a vegan or vegetarian, because they're going to show you how to eat plant-based and how to make it delicious. Deliciousness, by the way, is the number one longevity ingredient. I can tell you it's fermented tofu, but if you don't like fermented tofu, you're not going to do it long enough to make a difference.
I love how you talk about that, by the way, because I can't stand tofu, but I love to eat healthy. And that's all of your stuff tastes good. And
maniacally delicious.
Yes. And totally. But that's key. That's critical to be able to sustain it. Right. So, but this is good. Keep going. This is awesome, Dan.
Yes. But the most important factor is this: it's where you live. When it comes to longevity, trying to change your behavior or your habit, and there's a giant industries. The diet industry is worth over 150 billion. The exercise industry is worth another 100 billion. They don't work. If you look at the recidivism, you get 100 people on a diet today, you lose 90% in 7 months, and you lose 98% in 2 years. It sells hope. It doesn't deliver. Exercise programs. You get 100 people in a gym on January 1st. By September, you only have 20% left. And then you lose almost all of them within 2 or 3 years. Mark my words on this. Unless it's something you're doing almost every day for decades, it's not going to add any years to your life. You could run a marathon this year and be completely vegan and do all the longevity hacks that have evidence behind them this year. It will have zero impact on whether you are alive and healthy in 2030. In blue zones, people are living a long time, not because they have better discipline, better sense of individual responsibility, better, diets. They live a long time because they live in environments that nudge their micro decisions on a day-to-day basis for a lifetime. In other words, it's easier to walk to work or to school or over to a friend's house than it is to drive. So people are getting 8,000 steps a day without even thinking about it. They all have gardens out back. So they have low intensity cortisol leveling activity every day, and weeding and watering. And they emerge 2 or 3 times a year with fresh vegetables. Social media hasn't invaded there to the extent that it has in the United States. So their primary source of entertainment is interacting with their neighbors or their friends. They tend to live in extended families. So they're not suffering loneliness, an affliction that shaves about 8 years off your life expectancy. They're not getting involved with drugs as much and alcohol and other risky behaviors, because most of them belong to a faith-based community, which also adds about 4 years of life expectancy. So these are counterintuitive, under-marketed things that have to do with how you set up your surroundings, as opposed to trying to take on new habits. Don't try to change your behavior, change your environment. You'll live up to 12 years longer.
Well, and it's all about, it's like in sports, we talk about it all the time, right? It's all about the process, the daily behaviors that then ladder up to an outcome. For your work, it's the outcome as a long, healthy, vibrant life, right? With purpose and movement and all of that. I'm curious, what role does rest play in this, Dan? And then I'm also curious, and maybe this is a little bit of a selfish question, but travel, right? Like, do these folks travel, and what role does that play in it, given that often we live in a world in America where for many of the folks that are listening, they travel often, right? Whether it's for business or pleasure.
I'll start with sleep. The sweet spot for Americans is 7 hours a night. So 7 hours a night correlates with the highest life expectancy. If you're sleeping less than 6, there's for sure a problem. And over 9, there's probably a problem as well. In blue zones, they're sleeping closer to 8 hours a night. And I believe that's largely because after sunset, there wasn't a heck of a lot going on until the sun rose. And they live mostly at the 20th parallel. So they tend to have fairly consistent, 10 to 11 hour nights. As far as travel, no, they don't travel much in the blue zones. They're fairly remote and isolated. They don't move that much. On one hand, I think travel opens your mind, makes you a more well-rounded person. But the older you get, the less able you are to handle big shifts in time zones. It disrupts your microbiome. Traveling a lot is not good for you. There's no question about it. The occasional trip is negligible. You should do it, but the guy who travels 100 times a year to make sales call probably going to live a shorter life.
Yeah. Well, but I also think, I mean, candidly, Dan, I travel a lot, but you have to plan really well in service of ensuring you have the kind of food to eat when you're traveling and not relying on particular markets, right? I mean, I think I travel with so much food and access to water all the time so that you can ensure that you're doing what you can to support good decisions while you're not in your normal environment, right?
I have a good friend named John Mackey, founded Whole Foods.
Oh yeah, he's been on the show.
He's a great guy. He
very
travels
cool.
everywhere with this mini oatmeal maker, or it's actually a rice maker.
Totally.
And no matter what he for sure gets a high protein, high fiber breakfast every morning with his little oatmeal machine. So not a bad idea, by the way.
Yeah, and nuts are easy to travel with, all that. So I love it. Was there anything that really surprised you most about these blue zones that really shocked you as you did your travel and your certainly intense research?
Yeah, there are a few things that I found really interesting. I'll try to pick one from a few places. Sardinia, it shocked me that the wives of centenarians were more likely to reach age 100 than the children. So suggesting once again that the environment, it might be the bacterial environment, we don't know, is more important to genes. In the microbiome of these village Sardinian centenarians had about twice as many species of bacteria than in the guts of older Americans, suggesting that we should be feeding our guts lots of fiber with lots of different species, not just beans and grains, but also other vegetables. And that we should really take antibiotics very sparingly because they wipe out so much of the microbiome, as long as with whatever disease you're trying to wipe out. In Nicoya, Costa Rica, another one of our blue zones, I was shocked to find that the people born between 1890 and 1940 had the best chance of reaching age 100. So people born before 1890, they were dying prematurely of infectious diseases like cholera and malaria and diarrhea. And people born after 1940, they were surviving those infectious diseases, but they were dying from chronic diseases like diabetes and type 2 diabetes and dementia and heart disease. So that was interesting. Okinawa, I was surprised to discover that until 1975, about 70% of all calories came from one food and one food alone. You know what that food was?
What? No.
Purple sweet potatoes.
Wow.
So that's a food we ought to pay attention to. Purple
Yeah.
sweet potatoes. So there's
And
just
they're
a
good,
few.
by the way. They're great.
Oh my God, they're phenomenal.
I love.
You can just
I know.
microwave them; they're good.
100%. They're awesome. They're awesome.
Let me give you the easiest Blue Zone meal hack there is.
Let's
You
go.
steam sweet potatoes and mash them with coconut milk. 2 ingredients.
Nice.
Takes under 15 minutes and tastes maniacally delicious.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds great. Can you throw a little salt on it, man?
Well, yeah, to sweet talk me.
So for somebody listening who said, look, I could do a better job here. I mean, where do you start if you want to really work to create an environment that is more like a blue zone every single day for yourself?
I'd say start your kitchen.
Okay.
We're all going to eat junk food, but make sure that junk food is out of sight. A drawer that you establish that's down low or up high, kind of inconvenient, or around the corner in a pantry. We're all on what I call a seafood diet. We eat the food we see.
Right.
And if there's a bag of chips on our counter, guess what we're going to eat when we walk through the kitchen in the mid-afternoon? Meanwhile, if you have a fruit bowl, which I always have a fruit bowl going. I'll show you.
I love it.
This is what I always have this, right? So when I walk by all the time, there's little cherry tomatoes, fresh peaches, they're in season. That's what I eat when I walk by. Number two, I would say second would go to your bedroom. Okay. And these little things make a huge difference. But,
yeah, I bet. Totally.
Set your thermostat at 70 degrees, somewhere between 68 and 70. We sleep better when it's cool. Yeah. Invest in blackout shades. And it's almost a cliche now, but get rid of electronics in your bedroom. And those 3 things stack the deck in favor of a good night's sleep. And it's been pounded into our heads, and it's true. Sleep is turning out to be one of the almost as important as exercise when it comes to stacking the deck in favor of a longer life.
Yeah, I love it. What do most people get wrong about longevity?
That they can take a pill or a supplement or run down to Central America for stem cells. None of that's been proven to work in humans. It's all completely experimental, and there's downsides as much as upside. Stem cells is one of the biggest scams there is right now when it comes to longevity. There's no standardization of the source. Along with stem cells, there's a chance that whatever fluid it's in can carry other pathogens and cause infections. I have a neighbor down in Miami who went down to Central America for stem cells, and he never came back. He ended up getting his blood coagulated, and it caused an embolism, and he died within 6 hours of getting the stem cell treatment. So if somebody tells you take this pill or this supplement or this genetic intervention or stem cell for longevity, you can be pretty sure they have their hand in your pocket. I would say longevity clinics are a waste of money. They're very long on diagnostics. They're going to charge you a lot of money to assess you, and there's some tiny chance they find some cancer. Sometimes the cancer is serious, but more often than not, it just gives you something to worry about. Everybody over 60 has little cancers in their bodies, over 50 probably. And then all they're going to do is tell you to improve your diet, get physical activity, get good sleep, and then they may give you a bunch of supplements, none of which work. By the way, a meta-analysis of 300,000 people split into 2 groups, people who take supplements, people who don't take supplements. They found that people who don't take supplements actually have higher life expectancy than people who take supplements.
Wow.
So other than vitamin B12 for vegans, maybe vitamin D for some people, maybe one of like a cheap multivitamin you get at Costco or something.
Mm-hmm.
Other than
Mm-hmm.
that, supplements, all they give you is expensive urine. And there's potential downsides to them. So,
Yeah. What about things that are harder to get, like magnesium, right? That are harder to get in food, right? Like magnesium can be harder. I take Spirulina chlorella, wheatgrass, things like that. That sometimes, I just take wheatgrass cubes. But what's your take on some of those things that might be harder to get? Would you still push back on those and say you can still get it in food somehow, some way?
well, people in blue zones, and these are manifestly populations living a decade longer than us.
Yeah.
And that's a healthy decade. Never took a
Right.
supplement in their lives. They get it all from
Wow.
their food.
Wow.
The
Okay.
problem, a lot of the problem with supplements is they may include the ingredients that we need, but by the
Mm,
time as soon as we chew them, they start to
yeah.
oxidize. They go into our stomach, which has an acid as strong as battery acid. Then they go into our upper and the lower intestines. They may or may not get assimilated into the bloodstream. And then once they're in the bloodstream, they still have to make it through the cell membrane to get to the
Mhm.
cell. And
Yeah.
there's really no proof that they even get to where they need to get to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in theory these vitamins would be good, but there's no evidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike Roizen at the Cleveland Clinic has a lab that tests these, and
Yeah.
the only three vitamins that he found have any statistical significance are the ones I mentioned: vitamin
Yeah.
B12 for vegans, vitamin D in a few very rare cases, and there's a very small signal when it comes to a multivitamin, a cheap multivitamin. All the
Mm-hmm.
vitamins in America are made in essentially three labs. They're put in expensive bottles with fancy marketing names. If you want to live longer and you
Yeah.
feel like you need to take some supplements, I recommend 125 black beans every day,
Yeah.
ideally in a corn tortilla with some delicious hot sauce.
That's
More
so good,
evidence
man.
behind that than any other expensive pill that you can buy.
Well, and if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, wow, well, if you're eating like a blue zone person and you're creating an environment like that, you're softening the outer part of your cell membrane, right? Which potentially could help get that vitamin B in if that's what you choose to take, or other supplement, whatever that might be. But by eating that way, right, we make our cells healthier that allow things, if we want to do that, to get in anyway. To your point, I mean, if we're not eating that way and we're taking supplements, they're not getting into at the cellular level, I would imagine. Now, I'm certainly not a doctor, but that to me is a really interesting point, Dan. I appreciate that. Right? You probably just saved me a little bit of money, man. Thank you for that. Tell me this. I love. We talked about the Midwest. We spend time in the summer up in Michigan, and I'm outside a lot, right? More than I am in Atlanta in the summer. What role does being outside, you talk about environment, but tell me a little bit about the power of being out in our environment and fresh air and all that comes with that.
Well, being outside, we mentioned vitamin D being effective. The best way to get vitamin D is through sunshine.
Yeah.
20 minutes of good exposure with your arms and your legs exposed. You need magnesium. When you're outdoors, you're more likely to be active, moving
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
The air is more likely to be healthier than indoor. Of course, that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of changing a little bit today. But in blue zones, people spend the vast majority of their waking hours outdoors, out walking in the streets, in their
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
gardens,
Yeah.
um, out on their patios.
Yeah.
So I can't give you a specific answer, but I can tell you anecdotally in blue zones, people
Yeah.
are outdoors all the time and they live a long time. You can draw the connections.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about purpose earlier, and we live in a world, right? We talk about that a lot. And I thought it was interesting. You talked about it beyond, obviously, even your work. And so when we think about longevity and the drivers of food and fitness and the things that are happening in the blue zones, what does purpose look like, Dan, in a blue zone? And how do we, as people who maybe aren't in these 5 locations, but doing our best to create a great environment, how do we work to unpack something maybe similar to what they've unpacked and lived into relative to purpose? I believe that's critically important too. What does it look like in the blue zones? And then how do we apply it to our lives in maybe other markets?
In Okinawa, I'm just point out some anecdotes. It looks like a 102-year-old karate master teaching martial arts every morning, and that feeling that that's how he gives back. It's a 99-year-old basket maker teaching a 14-year-old basket maker to pass down a tradition. In Costa Rica, it may show up as going to church. In Loma Linda, California, among the Adventists, it show up as volunteering for the community, as a community for a larger community. Yeah. It's more important than we think. If we could put purpose in a pill, it would be a blockbuster drug. Yeah, there was a very famous study done by Dr. Robert Butler, who was the founding director of the National Institutes on Aging. And he looked at the writings of people going back 40 years earlier and found that those people who used words that suggest meaning and purpose in their life, in other words, they weren't rudderless, survived about 8 years longer than people who didn't know where they were going in life. And I think for most of us, the way you identify your sense of purpose is you take some time with maybe a blank screen or a piece of paper and a pen, and you write down 4 columns. And first column, you write down your values, just one or two word phrases like I'm Christian, or women's rights, or I love animals, what your values are. And then the second column would be your passion. I love sports, or I love my job, or family. I love being with my family, whatever it is. Third column is what I'm good at. I'm good at resolving conflict, or fixing things, or taking care of people, whatever it is. But most of us never take the time to do that sort of inventory. So we see in black and white what our values, our passions, and our gifts are. And then once we have those in front of us in the fourth column, they don't do you any good unless you put them to work. So then you want to think about where you can put those 3 things to work, whether it's as a volunteer, whether it's within your family, whether it's adjusting what you do as a profession. But people who wake up and who are rudderless in life tend to suffer a lot of stress. It's existential stress of waking up and saying, "What the hell is my life worth?" Right. Sure. I'm wasting time. Damn it! They don't know where they're going, so they never get there. Yeah. And the one of the big benefits in blue zones is there's vocabulary for purpose. It comes with mother's milk. You don't have to think about it. People in Korea, for example, know that they're Icarian first before they're Greek or anything else. And they show up for their community in a million ways. They just automatically know, I need to help my community. They've needed, the only way they've survived over the past 2,000 years is by pulling together as a community, and they continue to do so. And everybody feels important and needed. Yeah. No question. I mean, I think we and I'm sure that was something you saw with people with longevity. We all, and that's why we, sadly, sometimes you see people chase outcomes. I'm gonna work like crazy. I'm gonna make all this money, and then I'm gonna retire, and then I'm gonna fill in the blank. But we all need purpose. I saw that with the athletes I represented. Even sometimes, they're making a ton of money,
and potentially their spouse is also doing something. The ones that were happiest, I found, were doing something that drove a purpose that was potentially separate or attached to the person, the athlete that I represented. They needed, we all do. It's awesome the way you unpack that. And I think I would just suggest too, Dan, like, I think things like, what do I want my legacy to be? Who do I want at my 90th birthday party? What do I want on my tombstone? Sometimes I think when we unpack those questions that you framed up, those two can be really helpful, I think, in helping us come up with, then now what am I going to go do or serve, or who I'm going to spend my time with in service of what I've unpacked relative to my purpose. But
I'll bet you those high paid athletes have a tough time when they retire or
100%. Yes.
Get injured or something. They can no longer do it. How do you or do you just give those athletes a heave ho when they're no longer?
No, I mean,
is there some sort of a segue to the real world?
Well, I think if you're doing your job well as an agent, I mean, you are anticipating that moment, because even no matter how good they are, no matter who they are, it's going to end. It's going to end. And they often, even the smartest, they can't really get their head around that. And so I think as their agent, what I always wanted to do was help them understand who they are without the jersey on their back, without the number on their back, because that's a very different world that they're going to walk into and work hard.
How do you do that?
Well, you want to figure out a lot of what do they love doing, right? One of my baseball players once, I knew he was getting closer to that moment, and it was sort of, what do you love doing? And he loved, he sort of thought, well, he talked about various things like golf course design. He talked about being an on-air talent and doing TV. So every time he wasn't in the All-Star games, I would try to get him in the booth calling those games just for the All-Star game, just to get some reps, just to start to get a little bit of a reel and attempt to see what he loved and if he was good at it or not. Or if when the team came out of the playoffs, get him in a booth, right? Get him calling games, and then him being able to discern, yeah, I like this. This is fun. And by the way, I think I'm kind of good at it. And now they've built some reps and also potentially a resume for something that they can lean into.
Very smart.
But it's really important, and I think a good agent is anticipating that, not just pouring into them when they're signing big contracts. I think our job is to represent them for forever, for sure. So, Dan, I mean, you've spent so much time with 90-year-olds, 100-year-olds, which is, man, that's cool. What's the most powerful lesson that they've taught you?
To be interested and interesting, to really be conscious that when you're with other people, that you can tell a few good stories, but also that you're interested in them. To be generous, to be empathetic. I interviewed, to your point, I interviewed about 500 centenarians, and very few of them are grumps. In other words, likability. And I can't give you a bunch of data, or any data point to support this, but I can tell you from personal experience that there's a likability of likability factor into making it to 100. I don't know if it's something they learned or something they were born with, but cultivating that, I think, is so important, not only for longevity or for happiness. I frequently hear, I wish I would have taken better care of my teeth. So I don't know what it is about, but
that's amazing. That's so random, sort of.
I know, but it came up over and over again. I guess when you miss your teeth. And then investing in family. And that we kind of lose that in the United States, in our pursuit of successful careers, or, families, kids move away and, we see them for Christmas, but, very clearly in Blue Zones, especially at the end, I have this series on Netflix called Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones. And I profiled this 100-year-old woman in Sardinia who had this very beautiful life. She never got married. She never had kids of her own, but she had 6 nieces who lived in the village. And there was a niece that came over every night of the week, and she had a bedroom for them. So every morning she woke up with a niece. And that was, and this was her name was Julia, a very likable woman. She's fun to be around, liked her wine, etc. And that may be why her nieces wanted to come take care of her. But it was so clear that she was in her 100 because she was getting that daily care from her nieces, not some stranger, who shows up begrudgingly for 8 hours a day. This is round the clock, and it was free. And the nieces loved it, and she loved it. So, that it takes some time and effort. I made a big effort with my family. So I have 3 kids, and they're all, adults, and they were starting to move away. And, they come to me for favors now and again, and I always try to grant them. But about 4 years ago, I went to each one individually, and I said, I want 2 things from you guys. I want you to show up to a family reunion every year. I don't care what else is going on. Make it happen. I want you to show up for 2 days for Christmas. And I have a cabin, this house I'm at right now, that accommodates everybody. And I pulled in my favors in service of connected family. And, we come together here for 3 days. And at first, it's kind of weird the first night, with small talk and shit. But then the next morning we wake up and, we're making breakfast together. And then we're playing games. It's raining outside. And then another day we're out in the lake playing, and we bond and we create the stories. And I secretly know that when I get old, I have that family equity in the bank to draw from. And, I've instructed them that, they don't have to give me the nicest room in their house, but there's a
save one.
I call myself El Capo. There's an El Capo house, a room in each one of my kids' house. And when I get old and febile, I'm moving in with them.
Yeah. Oh, that is awesome. I love that. No, our cottage in Michigan, my parents are in there with us, and my brothers are close, and our kids and cousins and all that. And I can't tell you how much it fills all of our cups. And that connection with family is so huge, and with my husband's family. So, by the way, Dan, I'm going to cut in here and just tell you, we are going to hit this right after you launch your podcast. So I'm going to ask you the question about the podcast, but I'm going to say you just launched it. So I just got that from my team. So that'll be good, I think. And so, Dan, you just launched your new podcast. Get me inside of a little bit of the guest profile format. This sounds killer.
Thank you. Well, I spent 22 years working on Blue Zones for National Geographic. I've written 5 New York Times bestsellers and won 3 Emmy Awards in production. And along the way, I've been afforded access to the top scientists and celebrities who know something about longevity, and just the most interesting people. So I've started the Dan Buettner Blue Zone podcast, and I right out of the chutes, Laura Dern, one of our experts, Sonia Lubomirsky, who's the top happiness expert in the world, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who started DreamWorks, but he's also an amazingly healthy guy, and he's got a secret that's gotten him into his 70s with the biological age of somebody who's about 40. So I'm using my interviewing, the other side of the microphone, Molly, than from where I'm sitting right now, to really draw out the overlooked insights on what science tells us on how to live a longer, about 10 more years, and about 20% happier life. And I think we really deliver. It's called the Dan Buettner Podcast.
I love it. And it's everywhere that podcasts exist. People can go, I can't wait. I'm pumped. Yes. We're doing this interview before it launches, but I'm excited for it to get out there, and I can't wait to listen.
Molly, you kind of scooped me, actually, but okay.
I kind of what you? What do you mean?
You scooped me. That's what we say in the writing business when somebody gets the story before you do. In
Oh,
other
yeah,
words,
yeah,
you
yeah.
got the Dan Buettner podcast before I do.
Let's go. Let's go. This is awesome. So, if, just to leave our listeners with two or three things, when you get that, I'm sure you get this all the time when you're walking through an airport or in a meeting or on a call. What are the 2 to 3 things you would tell somebody to start doing, stop doing right now when we think about longevity, when we think about creating our blue zones?
First and foremost, you want to look at your life through the lens of how can I shape my surroundings so that making the healthy choice is easier. So going through your house and eliminating junk food, figuring out nudges to get you to move a little bit more, grow a garden, figure out how to commute to work. These sound like simple things, but because you'll do them for a long time, they have a big impact. Number 2, the number 1 longevity food in the world is beans. So if you can learn how to make beans taste delicious, and I think my Blue Zones cookbook do that, but there's lots of other recipes, and it's not the baked beans or the the lame lentils, but learn how to make beans taste good, because a cup a day is worth about 4 extra years of life expectancy. And then the third takeaway is curate your immediate social circle. The 3 or 4 people you really let into your life, you want to make sure most of them are healthy themselves, are happy themselves, and who care about you on a bad day. Friends are long-term adventures, and I can't make any money off of you on your immediate social network. That's why you won't hear about this elsewhere. But your friends are going to influence what you eat, how much you move, how you feel about yourself. Even loneliness is measurably contagious. So lonely friends will make you feel lonely. So I can't emphasize that enough.
I love it. I love it. So, Dan, we end with rapid fire. I'm going to hit you with a couple quick ones. You ready?
I'm ready.
One habit that's had the biggest impact on your life?
Brushing my teeth.
Brushing your teeth. I love it. That tying it back to the teeth comment.
Well, in fact, I don't know of a habit that works for a significant number of people for the long term. Habits are like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. You wish they would come and stay, but they never even arrive for most people. And if they do, they don't stay long. It's mostly fiction. But brushing your teeth, that works for most people, and it makes a huge difference on not only how long you live, but toothless people tend not to be quite as happy as the rest of us.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting for sure. Favorite recipe, your favorite recipe in Blue Zone's kitchen?
The Blue Zone minestrone. I learned the recipe from the longest lived family in the history of the world. 9 siblings all made it to 100. They ate the same soup. And by the way, if you don't want to buy Blue Zone's kitchen, I wish you would, but if you don't want to buy the Blue Zone One Pot Kitchen, if you come to my website, danbuettner.com, you can download it for free.
Wow. Very cool. That's awesome. What's the most impactful book that you've read that's had the biggest impact on your life?
Journey to the East by Hermann Hesse. It's a very short book. It's a fable about the importance of leading from behind.
What's
it's
one
about,
thing you never... Oh,
go
please,
ahead.
go ahead.
This
No,
is
go ahead,
rapid
go
fire,
ahead.
So go to the next one.
One thing you never travel without, and why?
I never travel without my Patagonia backpack, because I know exactly how to pack it for a 3-week trip or longer and get everything I need.
Yeah, I love it. You need it. We got a couple endorsement deals that we need to pull out of this thing, Dan, right?
Yeah, they don't endorse me. I just happen to be a Patagonia.
Well, maybe this is the start of it, man. Let's do it. So the show's called Game Changer. So one last question. Who or what is a game changer who inspires you, and why?
George Plimpton. He wrote Paper Lion. He was my mentor, and he taught me, we started this about talking about the Midwest, humble and apologetic people. Yeah. We often don't we often don't consider our full potential in making plans for our lives. George Plimpton taught me how to think big. He got me thinking, I hold a world record for biking from Alaska to Argentina. That was because George Plimpton instilled in me, you can think big and actually do it. And that ride started the chain of events that led to Blue Zones and all the ensuing success. So think big.
Wow. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I couldn't agree with you more on the Midwest. I can tell you're a Midwest guy. I appreciate you, Dan, so much. Thanks for the work that you do. And, I thank you, because I can take some of this and apply it to my incredible parents to keep them living longer, and to our listeners and to our own lives. So,
and we want you along. We want you around a long time too, Molly. And by the way, if your listeners have any questions on Instagram, I'm at Dan Buettner, and I answer all my direct messages myself. So if there's any other questions, at Dan Buettner, and I try to post daily tips on there as well. But delight talking to you, Molly, and thank you for changing the game of all of us.
Thank you, Dan. Awesome to hang out. Thanks so much.